Resurrection. Oh my god. Have you seen this one yet? In this video, I'm going to break down the new drama psychological horror Resurrection to see if it's worth your personal time without any spoilers, give you a little bit of a taste for what you're going to get into. Don't worry, I won't give away anything, just let you know if it's worth your personal time, if it's going to suit your needs. And then we're going to delve straight into the psychological elements because I cannot talk about this film without spoilers. So there will be timestamps below. I'll give you a big warning, but if you have not seen the film, let me convince you to watch it and then come back and watch the spoiler part at the end so we can discuss, because we have to. This is one of those films you see and you just have to talk about it. Written and directed by Andrew Simmons, the film stars Rebecca Hall as Margaret, a woman in control of what she wants. She oozes confidence and commands a room, but everything changes as she crumbles before the audience's eyes when she spots David, played by Tim Roth, a man from her past. Slowly, the audience is taken through her twisted fears as we watch her unravel into the person she was before, when David was last in her life. The film asks the audience to walk in her shoes, or really, if you've seen the film, walk without her shoes, taking a look into the life of a woman who had to rebuild herself after horrific events. And I don't mean horrific lightly at all. Rebecca Hall gives a jaw-dropping performance in this film. She has everything riding on her, from intense monologues to breakdowns in silence. Her transformation in this film is what makes it a terrifying story of abuse. And Tim Roth is equally as chilling, if that was at all possible, but for very different reasons. Paired with what feels like simplistic stylization that grounds itself in a clean and polished universe of expensive modern housing and beautiful hotel rooms. I feel like the use of these locations is a juxtaposition from reality into how bizarre the facts of this story become. We are grounded in some highlight reel of beautiful spaces while the true evil hides in plain sight, with a lot of nat sound used to emphasize the silence and the drama. I watched this film with headphones on, and I tell you what, the subtle wind and the stirring sound beds just really heightened the feeling of anxiety. The film keeps you on the edge with tension of what's to come commanding your attention. This film cannot be defined very easily. It has been called a drama, horror, crime, mystery, thriller. For me personally, if I had to put it in a box, I would say it's a horror drama, but a psychological horror at that. It's for those who are interested in twisted, dark stories that take place in a realistic setting. Stories that rely on psychological elements that may not provide all the answers, but will leave you thinking. And I know 99% of you gasping. If you're looking for something more drama skewed, that's psychological, that you can really sink your teeth in and go along for a slower ride with a dramatic conclusion, this is the film for you, especially if you like dark and disturbing. I highly recommend watching this film, and as soon as possible. I'm in between a 7 and an 8 for this one, but I'm gonna give it a 7 for this review. But hold up, a scare is also 7 and originality is also 7. So it really is consistent with all elements. Hopefully this will give you an idea if this film is for you, and if you have seen the film already, keep watching because we're about to delve in to some of the darkest elements. Please don't watch if you haven't seen the film. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler alert. Rebecca Hall's portrayal of what it's like to be held hostage in an emotional and psychological abusive relationship in this film is a powerful representation of how dark things can really be. Another great example of this is in the TV show Made. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. But that is very gradual and tells a story of a relationship while they're still in it, where in Resurrection we see her instantly changed, and the power that David has over her is absolutely chilling. The simplicity of the film is what makes it so powerful, and how they're able to convey how someone's mind can be completely warped. I think it's unreal and it's spot on. But I did have someone in my DMs telling me that they had spoken to a couple of people who thought that the film was unrealistic in the way we see Margaret's mind cave in on itself. I looked into this and I saw people in comments saying that it was an unrealistic example of psychological abuse. I can't believe people would claim that this was unlikely to happen and no one would believe in the delusions that we see Margaret go through, because that's just not the case. in society, there's so many examples. But let's recap so we can fully delve into this. And again, I'm going to give you a huge spoiler alert. Please don't watch this part if you have not seen the film yet. During the film, we discover that Margaret and David were a couple. When Margaret was 18, she traveled to the Queen Charlotte Islands off the coast of Canada. Here she met David, who gave her attention and charmed her parents. He started to spend time with her and her family, giving her drugs, in her words, wine and pills, and this is important. We'll come back to this. She then moved in with David, and she said that she felt seen, important, and appreciated, and her family left. This kind of love made her trust David, and he started to ask for small things in return. They were small at first, and these favors were called kindnesses. Starting with small things like cleaning the house, they then turned into somewhat tests to show how much she loved him. Things like don't wear shoes, don't eat food, and to hold stress poses for hours at a time. And if she could not do these kindnesses, not only would she feel like she failed him, but she was punished physically. She had to burn herself with cigarettes. David claimed that these kindnesses were important because they helped him communicate with God. He also could see the future. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, friends. You know what's coming next. And I hate having to even say this out loud. It's so disgusting. Margaret became pregnant and David didn't want her to give birth. But when she did have her baby, the desperation for David's love and approval faded as she felt her baby was her true purpose. David was enraged and jealous, and he was losing this control he had over her. So one day he asked her to go to the shops, and this was the first time that she had left her baby. When she returned, all she found was 3 of his fingers on the counter. David claims that he ate the child, and it was in his belly, still alive. Margaret, stricken with such grief, somehow convinced herself, or he convinced her, that it was true and that the baby was in his belly. He then claimed that he was one with the baby and that the baby was crying out to her, especially when she did something wrong. Obviously, psychologically broken, she began to believe him and hear the baby as well. Although them becoming one and him using the baby in that way became too much for her, and eventually she did run away and build a new life. If that's not the most twisted thing you've ever heard, I don't know what is. It was... I can't believe I even repeated that out loud. I can't. That's the most insane thing. To understand how Margaret got to this point, we have to go back to the kindnesses. Obviously, if you did not know, I'm an astronaut. I'm not a doctor in any way. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I just know what I know about this topic, so I'm not an expert in this field, and I would love to hear your comments down below. For me, the kindnesses sound like mind control tactics, which are commonly used in abusive relationships. Some of the tactics include pushing their partners to consume drugs and alcohol, which of course we hear is an early part of their relationship with the pills and wine. And then we see this moving into enforcing punishments for disobedience, which is another tactic that is used. Another one is exhausting them physically through forced labor in or outside the home, which is exactly what some of these kindnesses were. You know, it was stress poses, holding them for hours, walking around with no shoes. According to Craig McIntosh, a licensed clinical social worker who has more than 20 years experience working with domestic abusers, it's suggested that a crippling attachment anxiety drives abusers to work so hard to control their partners. He adds, I would suspect that most abusers who go to the trouble of intentionally creating crazy-making scenarios do it out of sadistic need to watch others suffer. McIntosh describes abusers deliberately causing their partners to doubt their perceptions and ultimately their sanity. So obviously we can see that the delusions that Margaret is having is by the books. It is what is unfortunately used in real life situations. But the genius of Resurrection is it never lets the audience off the hook by showing them anything else but Margaret's perception. We're not given any other viewpoint or explanation of what happened. Another film that is kind of the same, I mean, not the same subject or themes, but the same sentiment of only seeing that point of view is Saint Maud. If you've seen the film, you'll know what I'm talking about. In Resurrection, we don't ever learn what really happened to the baby All we hear about is the story of her dark past when Margaret tells Gwyn at work. The camera doesn't cut away and we don't get a flashback to go along with her story. So like David's twisted manipulation, there are no clues to the truth. We don't know what really happened. If they included the flashback, there would be context to the situation where we might see, morbid to say, but things like blood or just little clues in the situation, which we do see throughout this film. We see that David's on medication. I'm not sure if you caught that. I'm sure you did when she goes to his hotel room. Even Margaret at the start, there's context clues to that she's a confident person by the way she presents herself to the world. So because they chose deliberately not to use flashbacks and not to take us out of the current situation, we have no idea what actually occurred. We're left in the dark, like Margaret, with no other possibilities being presented. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Margaret tells this story while she's sitting in the dark. Without a trail of blood or props presenting clues, when the film spirals into her falling back into David's trap, we are left wondering, is this really all possible? And then the question becomes, as an audience member, how much can you suspend your belief? I know this is a film, but is it a fantasy? Is this really happening? And this slowly becomes a metaphor for her own delusion. Of course David is manipulating her and poisoning her mind. We know that. Logically, you know that. We know what's true and what's not. It's a film based in pure reality, and this unspeakable yet paranormal anomaly just wouldn't exist. But all this film needs to do is have you question it, even consider it for one moment, 1 millisecond, to show you how easy a mind can be broken. And that's just you and me. That's just the audience member watching the film. So imagine if it was actually happening to you. Given the extreme circumstances of abuse that Margaret faced, it proves how dangerous this situation is. This, paired with the arc of Margaret from the start of the film, is why the movie is a clean and concise portrayal of the power of emotional abuse. This is one of those films that I watched and I wasn't going to do a review of, and then I just haven't stopped thinking about it, and it's really taken a hold on me. If you have not seen it and you watched this far, I wish you hadn't, but I mean, it's still absolutely chilling. And I'm sure what I'm saying, you probably think I'm lying that that's what this film is about, but it truly is. I would love to hear your thoughts about this below. I'm sorry this is more of a heavy video, but I really wanted to talk about it, and I really want to see what everyone else is thinking about the film and what it meant to you personally. So drop me a comment and let me know what you thought of the film and what you rated it out of 10. Again, I'm gone between a 7 and an 8. It was just really hard. It's a lot to take in all at once. I'm only human. I hope you're having a fantastic day. If you have not subscribed yet, I would love to have you here. I do 2 videos every single week talking about horrors, talking about thriller, giving you a lot to put on your to watch list. And yeah, just keeping the conversation going, just being a hype girl for horror. That's basically my job. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok if you want to catch me over there, but I hope you have a fantastic day and I'll talk to you all very soon. Stay safe and stay spooky. Bye, friends.